Good morning and welcome to Join the Dots. Got a big one for you today. Now, I know over the last 2 days I did the US heart attack and I did housing, but it was all on a macro basis, and that's quite difficult for a lot of people to understand, and that's just because they don't have the experience, okay? It's not a criticism. We just have to accept that some things we just don't know anything about, and that's fine. So I'm trying to bring the housing now down to a practical ground level observation so that you can see what has happened, what is happening, and how it's distorting the market. It's not fraud, but it should be. Okay, it should be. So first of all, though, I'm going to start on a very quick one on gold and silver, because everyone's watching the gold and silver price. I woke up this morning, this is Monday morning, and I woke up to a silver price of 47.11. Eased off a bit now to 46.75, but it's still going one way, isn't it? It's still a journey, and that's what we're interested in. Gold's over 3.8. It's still a journey. 3,800. 12.54 I came in at. Now, I told you about two particular shares that I bought. Not that you should buy. You need to do your research, okay? And the people out there to help you are there's a number of people. There's Clive Thomson. There's Manico64. There's the best one of all, I think. There's Mike Maloney. There's Kinesis Money. I think the best, most solid one on miners is Rick Rule. Okay, I really do. And he has a boot camp which you can sign up for. And basically, he says that if you don't feel that you've got anything out of that at the end of it, you get your money back. What's to lose? Really, what's to lose? I trust Rick Rule. Anyway, Rick Rule, I watched his presentation the other day, and I thought I'm just going to pick two numbers out of there, because he rated 11 mining companies. Now, clearly he's not going to rate the whole index, is he? Because otherwise he gives away his whole IP. So he rated 11 for the purposes of the video. And he rated them 1 to 10, 1 being the top mark, down to 10 being the bottom mark. A number 1 in his gold shares, not a number 1 in his rating, it actually got a number 4. But it was the highest rating that he gave was to Agnico Eagle. So I'm very happy. He also said that his largest stock holding, and he really emphasised that, was Pan American Silver. I'm very happy with that. And then when you've got the very best in the industry who spends hours and actually has access to the CEOs through conferences, etc., then you're getting probably the best information or the best lead towards the information. Okay, so I rate Rick very highly. No more highly because he's picked my two, just because I rated him highly anyway. If mine had been lower, I'd have told you. So anyway, those are the two there. Now, moving on to housing, there was an excellent piece out by George Gannon recently, and I will link it, okay? George Gannon, US housing. This is critical to understand how companies can legally deceive you totally. And this is so important because, as I've said before, when you come to the end of a boom, everyone in that boom, everyone who's profited from that boom is trying to perpetuate the boom despite reality. They will cheat, they will fiddle, some will commit fraud. They will do anything to deceive you, the buyer. So we come across a case, a textbook case here, Lennar Homes, okay? Financial engineering gone wild. Yes. You can imagine that as a house builder, you do not want prices to fall, ever. You just want them to keep going up, okay? Now, they can't do that because of all the factors I've already mentioned on the macro side, let alone the micro side, let alone people's earnings, let alone people's fear of losing their job, etc., 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 raising interest costs, etc., 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 rising insurance costs. These are affecting house prices as well, or will do, okay? Everyone is trying to take money off the homeowner, and tax is coming as well, isn't it? We know it. We know the governments are on a tax scavenging mission. And how do they find it? Well, if you've got a home, it's there. You can't hide it. So they'll find it and they'll tax it. That's coming. Not yet, that's coming. All right, UK, they're already talking about it. So George Gannon shows you very simply in this presentation, it's linked above, okay. He shows you how clearly Lennar have deceived the market. Deceived the market. because they've overinflated the price they're selling at by giving you a huge interest buy-down subsidy in the background, such that a house that sells at 500 is really 400, because if they didn't give you all the interest rate subsidy, they'd sell it at 400. But they don't want it to sell at 400, do they? They want the market to think it sold at 500, because then on all your handy property websites, they just compare the price. They don't look into the detail. They don't look into what the company's doing to hide the real price and deceive the buyers. They don't look into it, because their model works on higher prices, and they get paid by the developers and by people selling their houses on getting a higher price. It's all one way. Now, it works until it doesn't. As most things in this world, they work until they don't. So what's happened with Lennar? Well, on August the 25th, their share price was 145. Oh no, September the 6th, their share price was 145. And by the 22nd, just 2 weeks later, it was 122. They've lost 15%, okay? But I don't think that's even the beginning of what they're going to lose. My opinion, based on the logic, based on the facts, is that they have deceived the market almost, well, without any thought for the buyer. Without any thought for the buyer at all. So really, the houses are not selling at those prices. The comps are all wrong. The comparatives are all wrong. They're selling for a lot less in reality, because if you take into account the mortgage subsidy they're getting, okay, now what happens when that company perhaps can't pay that mortgage subsidy? What happens? What happens when the banks see a red flag and they say, do you know what, we haven't a clue now what this company is really selling its product for. We haven't a clue what its true margins are. We haven't a clue. Why would we lend to it? Think about it. So Lennar now, I'm talking about flags, and I'm talking about an industry that's flagging. Okay, so the red flag is to the banks. Lennar have recently started to fly the white flag. In other words, they realise they can't continue this massive, up to 20% of the purchase price subsidy through interest rate subsidies. They can't do it. So they're now on their website. Go to Lennar's website, just go to it, okay, and have a look. George points them all out. He sees one from 276 to 210. He sees one from 242 to 190. So you're talking about a 20 to 25% real reduction in the true cost of the property, okay? So what does that do to someone who's taken a mortgage of 80 to 90% against the value, purchase price, which isn't really the value, is it? It's just the purchase price, because then you get this huge subsidy. So really, if you've taken an 80% mortgage on one of these properties, you're already underwater. You've got negative equity, except for the subsidy that you're going to get for the next year or two. So this was only about 4 minutes into George's presentation, so please watch it, okay? He's picked on Houston, and that's quite a vibrant city in terms of America at the moment. And obviously we're seeing some tremendous falls in California, New York, etc. Well, why wouldn't you? They're dangerous places. And that's not politics, that's fact. Look at the crime statistics. It's just fact, okay? I don't do politics. Park them at the door, get on with the financial, okay? So, how does all this impact the market? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? Because now it's going to get visibility. Now the market is going to see the true prices, the true reductions. And as I've said to you before, housing is an oil tanker. It goes on an incredibly long journey, slow, steady. Yes, it accelerates towards the end, or the housing market does anyway. But at the end of the day, when it turns, it's slow, steady all the way back as well. It doesn't turn quickly. It doesn't zigzag. It goes one direction. And the housing market has now one direction, and it's not up. Guess what it is? Okay, that's what we're going to see. Now, interestingly, this morning I got a very good call in from someone in Dubai who's given me a lot of information. I can't give you too much, but what I can tell you is that the developers themselves are now seeing a structure that is, and again, like Lennar, they're going to see incredible marketing programs in order to get rid of the stock that they've got and the plans to build a lot more stock in the next 6-9 months. Just a fact. So Lennar's is a marketing plan, isn't it? It's, we'll tell you the price is this, but underneath it, we're going to do all these shenanigans to hide the fact that the price is really 20% lower, 25% lower. Okay? What does the buyer see? Well, he only sees the top price, he sees the discount, he sees the interest rebates he gets. He says, fine, that's all right, okay, I'll do that. What he doesn't see is he's now 80% loan to mortgage, loan to value, and he's got a real problem because the real value is at least 20% lower. So he's underwater. And what do banks do with underwater mortgages? They panic. In fact, the whole system goes into panic. Here we are. Here we are. The whole system goes into panic. Illiquidity. That's why I gave you the macro position over the last 2 days first, before giving you not quite the micro, but a bit more down and dirty into the actual market itself and what the developers have been doing to confound the figures. And that's exactly what happened in China. And of course, China is still paying. We're 4 years, 5 years into their property burst. They're still paying. All the developers are bust. Evergrande, Country Garden, Shimao, Sunak, Logan, Greenland, they're all bust or near bust. Why? Because all of them will have gone through a certain marketing program in order to hide the falling price of property, just like Lennar did. Now, I can't believe that Lennar has come back and its shares are 122. I can't believe it. And that shows you again how the stock market is also in a bubble and a lie and living a lie. And there's a fantastic piece out from Greg Manarino today on the US stock market. I'll report it tomorrow. Okay, I'll report it tomorrow. But if you've subscribed to Greg, watch today. Watch the one he sent out last night, I think it was, on the stock market. It's very revealing, very revealing. Okay, so this is what we're seeing. We're seeing it in America. Understand that when companies have had a 10, 12, 15-year run of good market conditions, they cannot accept the truth when it turns. They will cheat in whatever possible way they can, legally, brackets, and some illegally, brackets, to deceive the public as we go into that final boom period. Okay? So I hope that helps you with housing. I hope it helps you understand. Think about that in Australia. Think about it in other countries as well, where you're seeing Canada, it's already falling. The condo market is falling. New Zealand's already fallen. Okay? Australia, it will come, but it will come through the banking system because the internal system just doesn't want to know. It doesn't want to know the truth. So it will be forced to understand the truth by the international banking system. Okay? I hope that helps. And please comment. Please comment. The more comments we get, I'll answer everyone. The more comments we get, the more interaction we get, the more views we get, the more subscribers we get, the better the service. Okay? Thank you very much.